root of -1 is... He didn't press us. On the contrary, he fondly studied our expressions as we mulled over the problem. "There is no such number," I said at last, sounding rather tentative. "Yes, there is," he said, pointing at his chest. "It's in here. It's the most discreet sort of number, so it never comes out where it can be seen. But it's here." We fell silent for a moment, trying to picture the square root of -1 in some distant, unknown place. The only sound was the rain falling outside the window. My son ran his hand over his head, as if to confirm the shape of the square root symbol. But the professor didn't always insist on being the teacher. He had enormous respect for matters about which he had no knowledge, and he was as humble in such cases as the square root of -1 itself. Whenever he needed my help, he would interrupt me in the most polite way. Even the simplest request, that I help him set the timer on the toaster, for example, always began with, "I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but..." Once I'd set the dial, he would sit peering in as the toast browned. He was as fascinated by the toast as he was by the mathematical proofs we did together, as if the truth of the toaster were no different from that of the Pythagorean theorem. It was March of 1992 when the Akebono housekeeping agency first sent me to work for the professor. At the time, I was the youngest woman registered with the agency, which served a small city on the inland sea, although I had already had more than 10 years of experience. I managed to get along with all sorts of employers, and even when I cleaned for the most difficult clients, the ones no other housekeeper would touch, I never complained. I prided myself on being a true professional. In the professor's case, it took only a glance at his client card to know that he might be trouble. A blue star was stamped on the back of the card each time a housekeeper had to be replaced, and there were already 9 stars on the professor's card, a record during my years with the agency. When I went for my interview, I was greeted by a slender, elegant old woman with dyed brown hair swept up in a bun. She wore a knit dress and walked with a cane. "You will be taking care of my brother-in-law," she said. I tried to imagine why she would be responsible for her husband's brother. "None of the others have lasted long," she continued, "which has been a terrible inconvenience for me and for my brother-in-law. We have to start again every time a new housekeeper comes. The job isn't complicated. You would come Monday through Friday at 11 a.m., fix him lunch, clean the house, do the shopping, make dinner, and leave at 7 p.m. That's the extent of it." There was something hesitant about the way she said the words brother-in-law. Her tone was polite enough, but her left hand nervously fingered her cane. Her eyes avoided mine, but occasionally I caught her casting a wary glance in my direction. "The details are in the contract I signed with the agency. I'm simply looking for someone who can help him live a normal life, like anyone else." "Is your brother-in-law here?" I asked. She pointed with the cane to a cottage at the back of the garden behind the house. A red slate roof rose above a neatly pruned hedge of scarlet hawthorn. "I must ask you not to come and go between the main house and the cottage. Your job is to care for my brother-in-law, and the cottage has a separate entrance on the north side of the property. I would prefer that you resolve any difficulties without consulting me. That's the one rule I ask you to respect." She gave a little tap with her cane. I was used to absurd demands from my employers. That I wear a different color ribbon in my hair every day, that the water for tea be precisely 165 degrees, that I recite a little prayer every evening when Venus rose in the night sky. So the old woman's request struck me as relatively straightforward.